does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
The world's finally realizing that under this president, America isn't going to be taken advantage of. It sounds like a superhero trailer, a blockbuster promise. But in reality, the U.S. is stuck in an internal war between truth and carefully spun stories. Not being bullied sounds strong, but often it just means protecting the powerful while the public gets buried in confusion. Enter Robert De Niro, a man who doesn't play the PR game. Instead, he pulls back the curtain on what others try to hide. Standing in Toronto, espresso in hand, he says the quiet part out loud. "I want to apologize for the idiotic behavior of my president." The crowd erupted, not out of offense, but because someone finally said what they'd all been thinking. That wasn't a political jab. It was a weary admission. De Niro wasn't just talking policy. He was speaking for millions exhausted by chaos. Karoline Leavitt, meanwhile, is seen by many as the fresh face of MAGA. But as De Niro points out, she's more like a plastic flower, repeating old slogans, dodging real questions. When asked if Musk took the same constitutional oath, she stammered, promising to get back with an answer. That moment said it all. She's not grounded in constitutional knowledge. She's part of a scripted machine that can't adapt when someone asks a real question. De Niro didn't let it slide. He told the press to act like adults. Politics, he reminded everyone, isn't about shouting. It's about facts, maturity, and truth. And truth, under this administration, is an endangered species. De Niro exposed how modern press briefings are less about informing the public and more about protecting the president from accountability. Leavitt and others defend a system where access to power is invitation only. Ask a hard question, you're shut out. Praise the boss, you're rewarded. Power now trumps truth. The press becomes a cheer squad. But De Niro's not having it. He calls out the media's complicity, refusing to pretend that everything is fine just to maintain access. Trump's defenders call him a proven economic leader, but De Niro sees through it. He doesn't just hate bullies, he calls out their tactics. He compares Trump to a three-star Mussolini, not to insult, but to underline how he rules through intimidation. It's not policy, it's mafia-style threats dressed up as patriotism. And while Trump clings to tariffs as proof of strength, De Niro reminds us that leadership is more than bluster and fees. It's about substance. Trump's policies, he says, are more performance than strategy, a show for the cameras, not a plan for the people. De Niro's concern is deeper than the moment. He sees a country slipping into a pattern where the truth is optional and lies are monetized. De Niro didn't just critique from the outside, he saw the inside too. What we're seeing, he said, is a denial of truth across the board. After a speech from Trump, De Niro described it bluntly. Insane, not harsh, just honest. He wasn't looking at a leader. He was watching a man build a world of illusion, a president who replaces facts with theater and expects applause for the fiction. Even comedians are stepping in to make sense of the madness. Bill Burr, with his sharp tongue, sees through Trump's act. He jokes about Trump's tiny hands packing the punch of a digital warhead, more powerful on Twitter than in policy. Burr calls it finger power, a perfect metaphor for how Trump's reach extends through memes and sound bites instead of legislative wins. And when Trump suggested annexing Canada as the 51st state, that wasn't satire. It was real. Burr compares it to Jafar marrying Princess Jasmine. It's fantasy disguised as diplomacy. Burr turns the absurd into punchlines because the truth already feels like a parody. De Niro, though, doesn't need a punchline. He looks at Leavitt and sees the risk. A generation learning politics through slogans and blind loyalty. He doesn't shout, he challenges. Let's act like adults, he says, urging reason in a room full of spin. Because what's at stake isn't just an election, it's how people understand leadership. When De Niro calls Trump so stupid, it's not just a jab, it's frustration. Watching the president fumble through basic governance is like watching someone try to read a map upside down. De Niro sees the cracks, the improvisation, the danger. He warns that it can't last, and the price for letting it continue will be steep. Even late-night jokes can't mask the seriousness. Burr jokes that Trump got shot and didn't fall. He just kept yelling, like a comic book villain who doesn't know when to quit. Is he insane, immortal, or just really good at faking strength? Either way, the spectacle works, and that's what scares De Niro. He knows what happens when power becomes theater, when leaders confuse volume for vision. He's not just pointing out the absurd, he's warning us that beneath the jokes, the consequences are real. This isn't a comedy, it's a country on edge, wrapped in slogans, distracted by spectacle. And the only way forward is to see past the noise and start telling the truth, loud enough to drown out the circus.